My name's Charlie Zelli, Chair of the Met Council, and I'm calling this meeting of the Metropolitan Council this June, is it already the 8th? The 8th, 2022. This is a regular meeting, and before I call the meeting to order, we will look at the agenda, and if anybody has any corrections or alterations, amendments, I will assume that it is approved. And we'll move on to the approval of the minutes that were sent out in advance, May 25th, 2022. Is there a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
Move approval.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. The minutes are approved. On to a public invitation for comment, and we
Chair,
now.
You skipped approving the agenda.
No, I actually, I offered any corrections or additions
okay.
to agenda, so I did say that, and if anybody wants to make any alterations.
No, usually we vote, though.
We haven't during the, this is a matter of information. It is a serious controversy and debate here at the council. And after consulting with a number of attorneys, including our general counsel, she has written me permission to not call a vote because we didn't for the agenda. And, but we do know that if there is any corrections, then we could amend it. And if, say if somebody wanted to move something from the consent agenda onto a regular one, we would certainly have a vote for that. But if it is as it is written, without any alterations, she has said we do not actually need to have a vote, unless you are calling to have a vote, and I'm happy to oblige.
In fact, if we can do that at committee meetings too, that will be.
I'll ask Ann to
streamlining.
give that word. Now, Dave is not so sure, so we're gonna continue to, you know.
But I work for Ann, so.
We have great respect for our hierarchy, so anyway, thank you, Dave. And we'll ask Ann to confirm that with committees, though, yeah. Right. So we have an opportunity for public comment. I know that we've had a couple of people sign up, and now that we're back in person, it's really great to give people 3 minutes on items that are not on the agenda. And if Mark Hughes is here. Okay, Mark, come forward. Mark signed up ahead of time. And I'm going to fill the airtime by saying that my understanding is in past years you have made comments in the past, so you are welcome to come before the council and have your approximate 3 minutes is yours.
Kind of like coming down to the Price is Right.
Hey.
Thank you very much. Chair Zelli, members of the council, it seems like when he said I've made comments in the past, yes, I have. But I try not to be Metropolitan's bad guy. I try to do this in a good, fair way. Do I want to be here today? I suppose I should be. Do I need to be here today? Yes, I do, because I feel I need to. There's a written memo from me in your packets, and I'm just a little guy in the community, that I wish you all would read over. And if you want to get a hold of me, I think my contact information's on there, and that goes for Chair Zelli and everybody. But I want to call to your attention a couple things that have happened on Metropolitan. Number one, I was in an accident, and those things happen. The more miles you put on, the more vulnerable you are. And nobody was hurt, but the gal driving the car looked to be under the influence of drugs. That was kind of interesting, so we let the State Highway Patrol take care of that. Number two is, we had an instance whereby I've been doing some work out in Woodbury, and a gal needed to get to the post office by 1 o'clock. So the driver was kind enough to say, well, there's the mailman. I'll ask him. The MVT didn't pick up the information. And so the driver was going to get out and ask. And she got off the bus and just went off, and the mailman then came back and argued with the driver. Well, by the time this all transpired, not only was she late, we all were late. And I don't think, if you're paying for a service, it's not perfect. I get that. The only one that's perfect is Jefferson Lines. I've had pretty good service on there. But it's,
Your time has been extended to as much.
But you know, so now we're all late, and it's kind of maddening when you're paying for a service and somebody's acting up, why? And the driver's in the direction, they're the captain of the ship, and it would have been a lot easier for the driver to get out and take care of it quick. The other one was, I was on my way to work, coming down Rice, Little Canada Road, rather. We stopped by Grand Prix East. I don't know if you're familiar, that's condominiums. And I don't want to discriminate against anybody, but an African gal hollered across the parking lot for her boyfriend to come, but she got on the bus in her bra and then told the driver that she couldn't find her go-to card. And that may be the case. That may be the case. And by law, actually, they consider that clothed. But anyways, and so I don't know what happened on the way home, but she got to Aldi's, and they probably deducted in the office. But that, I don't know. I think I'm in the real world, and I've seen a lot of things, but nothing like that. And if I got to come in a shirt and pants, even if I don't have a tie on, which today I do out of respect for all you people, all you folks, then I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But those are my comments. I have it in a memo form. I hope somebody gets back to me. The last comment I will tell you is I still have a Woodbury office. They like me out there, I think. The problem we're going to have after November 28th, they're cutting my service back to 8 o'clock in Shoreview. And every once in a while I have to go down to Minneapolis and do a little work and that lasts till 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night. And so I'm going to have to see about getting some of my hours extended. Why? Now, Mark, why don't you move? Well, I happen to be terminally ill with cancer, but it's my choice to work. And that's not to make you cry or feel sorry for me. Don't do that. Because we're not giving up on medical technology. I'm going all the way. I'll have another treatment on August 12th and keep going. But it's my wish to keep working. And the ADA law says the service has to get you there and it has to bring you back. So I hope we can negotiate a later time for me so I can continue my work. Thank you, and I hope you'll read my memo and send some comment my way. Thank you.
We will. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. We also have somebody who signed up. I think it's Lang Yong. Welcome.
Hey, Chair, and I'm glad that Mark came up first because what I'm talking about and what I heard him say was transportation, right? Efficiency, unexpected experiences, which was on the negative side, and all of that, and the population, the very elusive population responsible for this unexpected experience. Now, I'm here to make light of that. Some of us call them entitled. A lot of us don't see them at all. And quite frankly, they are the median population here in Minnesota. We call them millennials, right? And most of them are responsible for some of the things that he went through, along with, back in 2019 when I first addressed this council, gun violence. And I gave you guys a solution at the time because it made sense to me, but when I kind of announced it to like the whole world, everybody's like, huh? And what I said was, if we're gonna solve gun violence here in Minnesota, we have to teach them how to use guns, right? In elementary school, at a very young age, because the excitement of using a gun is peer pressure. And that's about it. Because everybody's like, are you gonna let him talk to you like that? And the kid or the young adult at the time has never used a gun before. And I actually interviewed 3 of these individuals who were arrested in jail and asked them, why'd you shoot them? They're like, I didn't know a gun could do that. I'm dead serious. And it was a shocker to me. And so if we showed these children how scary guns really are, right? And take them to the gun range, or at least show them how to use it, there'd be a lot less accidents, a lot more knowledge. And you know what? I don't want to use this gun. It's scary. A lot of that. And I'm also going to tell you that millennials today, and we are the median age group, we are the most elusive and we are the most poor. We own 6% of the nation's wealth, according to the Federal Reserve Bank. 6%. The Gen Xers, they own 20%, and the baby boomers own the rest. In the coming years, this is going to be largest exchange of the generational wealth from the old to the young. And we don't know how to use it. And quite frankly, when we see that much money coming down the pipe, we fight each other for it. We get jealous, we get envious, and it's gonna be a big issue. But I wanna bring to light, all right, if we're the median age group and we own a whopping 6%, where's the 6% today that owns that wealth? What are they doing? And why, and how are they keeping that wealth? Car enthusiasm. Because how much does it cost to keep a car? Now, how much does it cost to keep a car enthusiastically? Quite a bit more, doesn't it? And you guys all know how it felt to first purchase your first new vehicle. You guys were very excited, at least I was, and then afterwards you're like, oh man, this sucks, I got screwed. Buyer's remorse. But we as millennials, we use it as a way of self-expression because there's so much judgment out there, including social media, all that stuff. Putting the money into our cars and putting big rims, loud exhausts, loud speakers, all that stuff is the only way we can express ourselves without being judged badly, because that's who we are. And you guys, this chamber holds the power and the solution to gun violence and to help cultivate the car enthusiast culture, your parking ramps. And you guys block them every single night from these kids, these young adults who want to use them. Because you know what we like to do during car shows? We like to sit around and, that's cool, that's cool. We don't care about the color of each other's skins in car shows. We care about the color of their cars, right? And by the way, if you guys didn't know, do you guys know about the Back to the 50s car show here? Mm-hmm. Back to the 50s car show holds the Guinness Book of Records for the most attended car show in the United States. 90,000 attendees come from all over the United States to that car show. And that's huge. But what have they done to the state fair to cultivate that car show? Have they upgraded the grounds for that show? I mean, it's the Guinness Book of Records, 90,000 attendees, and they've done nothing to upgrade that grounds. So you guys, and even today, and I'll finish it with this, the car enthusiast culture, they already hold weekly car meets that have numbers up to 300 cars. And these are just weekly meets, 300 cars a week that the city kicks them out of the parks all the time. And now we have nowhere to go. And if you guys charge $10 per car for the ramps, to let them use the ramps, and maybe add a little couple food trucks here and there, and charge for the leasing space for the food trucks, you guys can make the money that you guys need to fix these damn potholes out here. So that's what I'm gonna present to you guys. And I have a lot more, by the way. This has been a long journey since 2019. For me. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to see you guys back here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, now we're moving on to the consent agenda, which was sent out in advance. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilmember Sterner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Vento. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the consent agenda is approved. We're moving on to the standing committees. There are no reports from Community Development, but there is from the Environment Committee, Councilmember Lindstrom.
That's me. Thank
There
you,
you are.
Mr. Chair and members. Business item 2022-148 requests approval for contract 21P010 for expansion of the regional maintenance facility in Eagan. The regional maintenance facility has served as the base for the Interceptor Engineering and Interceptor Services Business Unit since the mid-1980s. And a report a few years ago, 2018, a risk report provided recommendations for addressing cybersecurity risks by restricting access to the server room and adding a dry fire suppressant system. There's currently insufficient room for visiting staff, meeting rooms of future growth, and the facility requires improvements to women's facilities and to the HVAC systems. Additionally, MCES will no longer be leasing space at our Metro 94 Facility for the Air Quality Department and Regional Maintenance Facility was identified to be the new location of these staff as well as the odor lab. 2 teams and an assistant manager from construction services would also be relocated from the Metro plant, where they have been located in what was to be temporary facilities 30 years ago. So we had an invitation for bids. It was advertised at the beginning of March. A pre-bid meeting was hosted by council staff. And a public bid opening was held on April 14th. 3 bids were received. Shaw Lundquist submitted the low responsive and responsible bid and is recommended for this award. The Office of Equal Opportunity assigned a Met Council underutilized business goal for 15% for this project. Shaw Lundquist has met the contract requirement for this project. Therefore, Mr. Chair and members of the council, I move that the Met Council authorize its regional administrator to award and execute contract 21P010 with Shaw Lundquist Associates for the expansion and remodeling of the regional maintenance facility in the amount not to exceed $18,844,080.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carried. On to the Management Committee. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Management Committee brings before you business item 22-147. It's the International Union of Pipe Fitters, local union number 445 AFL-CIO. The Metropolitan Council's had a labor agreement reached a labor agreement with the International Union of Pipe Fitters, Local 455, which expired on, we had an agreement in place, I should say, which expired on April 30th, 2022. The union represents 1 full-time pipe fitter who performs licensed maintenance work for the council's Environmental Services Division. The union and the council reached a tentative agreement on May 12th, 2022, which was ratified by the membership on May 18, 2022. Highlights of the agreement include a 3-year contract effective May 1, 2022 through April 30, 2025, a $3.70 per hour increase in year 1, a $3.30 per hour increase for year 2, and a $3.20 per hour increase for year 3 in total wages and benefits package, which per council policy follows the outside agreement negotiated between Local 455 and representatives of the local construction industry. In 2022, the total package will be $83.96 per hour. The cost of the labor agreement was reviewed by finance and was negotiated within the economic parameters established by the council. Mr. Chair, the Management Committee moves approval to authorize the regional administrator to enter into a labor agreement with the International Union of Pipe Fitters, local union number 455, AFL-CIO, effective May 1, 2022 through April 30th, 2025.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Councilmember Mute. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion is adopted. On to the Transportation Committee. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2022-97 is for Emergency Declaration 85 for the Bass Lake Spur West Tie replacement work. The Metropolitan Council purchased the Bass Lake Spur from Canadian Pacific in 2018. This was a project requirement. The east segment is inspected and maintained through the Southwest LRT civil construction contract, while the west is inspected and maintained by the third-party contractor. In spring 2020, an inspection identified a critical number of railroad ties which required imminent replacement, leading to the emergency declaration. The work was completed in May 2022 and resulted in the replacement of 1,600 ties and associated equipment like spikes, plates, and clips. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council ratify Emergency Declaration 85 for the Bass Lake Spur West Tie replacement for the Metro Green Line Extension Project to North Shore Track Services Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $439,000.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion is adopted. Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, council members, business item number 2022-133, to request approval to negotiate and execute 4 master contracts for environmental assessment and investigation services. There was an important discussion at Transportation Committee regarding the procurement process and the DBE goal associated with this. Master contracts are for many types of capital and operating projects where there is specialized work in various disciplines. The funding for the work is provided for in the project budget. The procurement process included a Brooks Act solicitation, which is a qualification-based selection process, which is a 2-step process. An evaluation panel was selected, and the panel discussed and debated the merits of the technical proposals received, reaching a consensus on the proposals that were most technically qualified to complete the work. After selecting the most qualified proposals, the second step was for the negotiation panel to open the sealed cost proposals, review, and negotiate for a fair and reasonable price to perform the work. The Office of OEO included a 15% DBE goal for the contracts. The previous group of master contracts did not have a goal. This change created and increased an opportunity for disadvantaged businesses. Several DBE firms are available for the scope of work. The work was intentionally divided between 4 firms to create specific disciplines and DBE participation in each category of work. Several small businesses are represented in the subcontractors for the contract. Therefore, Mr. Chair, I move that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute Contract 21P251A with Braun Intertech Corporation, Contract 21P251B with American Engineering Testing Incorporation, Contract 21P251C with Short Elliott Hendrickson Incorporated, and Contract 21P251D with WSP USA for environmental assessment and investigation services to support Metro Transit engineering and facilities in the amount of $250,000 each for a total not to exceed value of $1 million.
Thank you. That's a lot.
That was a lot.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Chambliss. Any questions, comments, discussion? Councilmember Barber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to relay that on behalf of the Transportation Committee, we thought this was really important to bring back to the full council. This is something that, looking at these master contracts can encapsulate a lot of work and hasn't necessarily focused on some of the MNCUB and DBE goals that this council's been really focused on. So this was really a creative way to do this that really did open up to a lot of DBEs and small businesses. So I think I really want to commend our procurement staff for doing this and bringing this to the committee. I think it's a really excellent example of, putting our values to work.
Thank you, and I'll give a shout out to our procurement department here who's listening in. Any more discussion, comments? Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, I want to just express my appreciation for this successful procurement and working with kind of splitting out a master contract so that we have more opportunities for our small business owners and DBE participants. So this is great. It's a great model, and I hope we have more opportunities to do the same in the future.
We're continuing to learn as we go. Great. Any other questions, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion is adopted. So we have a final item today, which is an information item on community designations presented by Rhea Esmali. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Close, Mr. Chair. It's Raya Smiley.
Esmali. Oh, okay, lovely. Well, welcome.
Thank you, Chair, council members. Good afternoon. My name is Raya Smiley. I'm a senior planner in the Local Planning Assistance Unit of the Community Development Division. And I'm here to tell you a little bit of information about the community designations projects that some of you may already be familiar with because you've heard about it from through CDC. It's been a while since I've presented in this room, and I forgot that I can actually.
Digital presentations in person.
I forgot that I don't need to tell someone to take it ahead. Okay, so community designations have always been a part of the regional development guides in the past. Previously, they have been called the geographic planning areas. They help the council further regional policy outcomes. And they are used to plan and implement the regional policies at the local level. They are the basis for land use policies and density expectations that we communicate with the local communities. They help us differentiate between communities with their commonalities and differences. They guide growth in areas with urban infrastructure, and they also help us protect agricultural land and natural amenities. So the current adopted regional development guide, Thrive MSP 2040, includes the community designations as you see on this map, which is as of August 2021, reflects any changes through plans and amendments. The community designations are grouped into big groups of urban service areas and rural service areas. They were created based on 5 main variables. Those are the Metropolitan Urban Service Area, or MUSA, the percentage of developable land, age of housing stock, which was used as a proxy for age of infrastructure, intersection density, and long-term wastewater service area. So let's take a quick look at the process for this project. The community designation project has been and continues to be a pretty iterative process throughout 2022. The 2 main components of this project are engagement and analysis. With the engagement, we are engaging with stakeholders, both external and internal, as well as committees. I will get back to that shortly. And we are coordinating with other efforts that are ongoing throughout the council for the 2050 regional development planning. Then the analysis is the technical component of this project. That we have evaluated the current variables, the 5 that I showed on the other slide, and we're trying to, we have conducted analysis on their effectiveness in the last round of comprehensive plan, and we're trying to refine them as much as possible to make sure that they, moving forward, they represent more current information and as much refinement as we can possibly include. We have also worked to identify new and enhanced variables to explore additional areas that we can include in this project. We are currently working on analyzing the impact of those new information to see how they would potentially help us or hinder the regional policy and moving forward into the future. So as I mentioned about the stakeholder engagement, we have an external focus group. We have worked with local planners and asked them to help us throughout this process. The map that you see just shows the communities that this external focus group for the community designation project represents. You see the counties shaded because Scott and Carver counties have planning authority, so they represent basically the entire area, as well as Dakota County Collaborative, which worked together in the 2040 comprehensive planning process. So we have someone who worked on that plan helping us throughout this process. Internally, we are engaging with staff from all the technical areas at the council. That includes land use, transportation, regional parks, wastewater, surface water, water supply, transit, housing, TOD, equity, and research. Our internal technical staff will help us with identifying the impact of the community designations on each of these respective areas. Other committees that we're engaging with, the main committee that we're working with is the Land Use Advisory Committee. The Land Use Advisory Committee is the body that will be making the final recommendation to the CDC that will eventually come to the Metropolitan Council for final adoption. I will talk about that a little more. We have engaged with the Metropolitan Area Water Supply Advisory Committee, or MOSAC, as well as we will be with Water Supply Technical Advisory Committee. Okay. Just very briefly, not getting into too much detail, some of the information that we have heard from the different, both internal and external focus group, as well as the committees, is making sure that we are refining the existing variables, making sure that we are considering additional information that includes natural resource preservation, climate concerns, water supply, the sensitive water areas, as well as building more flexibility as much as possible within the community designation process. And also making sure that the approaches end up being simple and easy to implement, which is our hope. So just a big picture, let me see where I am, there I am. One thing to note about this timeline is that it is ambitious. We have started this project in the beginning of this year. As I mentioned, we are working with LUAC throughout 2022, sorry, missed 2 years, for the Land Use Advisory Committee to make that final recommendation, hopefully at their November meeting to CDC. We will adjust this timeline as needed, but that is the hope that we'll make it to the Metropolitan Council in December. Let me see. Yes, the stakeholder engagement is also part of this process from the beginning to, for the most part of this process. And we will continue engaging with our stakeholders and expand that as much as needed. And currently we are in that analysis portion. As I mentioned, we are assessing the variables that we have and creating options. Our hope is that the next LUAC meeting will be bringing some options for the members to be looking at them and react to the potential impacts of what that could be moving on into the future. And as I mentioned again, adoption in sometime in November and December, depending on the meeting dates. Okay. And finally, the deliverables of this project are, we will be creating a set of criteria for defining community designations, and that's, again, currently are those 5 variables that were included in the FRAD MSB 2040. We will present what those community designations actually are, as well as a description of each of those. Density expectations for, so land use density expectations are also based on community designations, which are part of this project, so we will be bringing that forward as well as maps of community designations. And here are the name of staff that you can always reach out to with any questions. However, at this point, I am happy to answer anything that you may have for me right now.
Thank you, Rhea. Any questions? Councilmember Vindu.
Thank you very much. This is interesting, and first time a lot of us have been through this. And one of the questions that I know for those of us in the East Metro area that I think will share my concern is, how do we balance our role authority as it relates to designation on undeveloped land that may impact water access, water quality, quantity, and may also have factors unknown related to industrial waste being left there, deposited there. Both of us are in an area dealing with PFAS. We're both in an area dealing with lake levels, a specific lake level that's impacting our jurisdictions. And one of the concerns I have is that when land, see Lisa, we've just had a conversation about this. And I know that our relationship is somewhat limited to it, but we're the ones that end up getting blamed, inevitably. And that's kind of the general rule a lot of citizens, cities and counties. When in doubt, blame the Met Council, whether we have any authority or not. But I'm particularly concerned about it as it relates to the water levels, the aquifers. Are our plans for the future setting us up for even bigger problems as it relates to water availability?
Chair, Councilmember Vento, thank you for bringing this point up. In fact, it's something that other, like our external stakeholders, specifically city staff from the area, have brought up as well. So that was part of when I mentioned water supply concerns and other sensitive waters. We are looking into seeing what kind of information we can include in community designations that tries to capture some of those concerns. And we haven't quite been able to identify what data and what information can help us capture that the best way possible. And at the same time, one thing to note is that this project by itself does not include the policies that will be associated with community designations. Those will become after the adoption of community designations, which may address your concern in further detail. So we are and will be looking into it for sure, and hopefully there will be more to come as part of the policies as well.
Mr. Chair, if I could just follow up.
Please.
And to the extent that it's possible in some way to make sure that cities don't just end up with these designations and policies being handed to them. I know that there's the focus group, and that's excellent. I think that's a great start. But to the extent that there's an opportunity for cities to have either input or be able to give feedback, I think that's really important, rather than having it just dumped on them.
Chair, Councilmember Vento, certainly. Thank you for that comment.
Other comments, questions?
Mr. Chair?
Oh, Councilmember Johnson.
Yeah, just briefly, I really appreciate Councilmember Vento's comments, and I was going to ask something on the same line. I think eventually we probably all have a bit of the contamination, but not to the degree you're facing, just because of the nature. But my question is this, that with the focus groups you're working with, and of course then the communities find out what their designation is going to be, but it should probably be no surprise at that point in time, because there'll be a lot of discussions and opportunities to get involved and ask questions. And then it would continue on, I would assume, when the policies come behind that as well. I know communities really pay attention to this, especially if it's changing or you know, what the direction might be as they start their next round of comp planning. So I think I know the answer, but if you would just confirm that, and I think this council has asked too, you know, what are the city's opportunities to really have a say in how this proceeds?
Certainly, Chair, Councilmember Johnson, thank you for mentioning that. We are trying to figure out how much more and at what points we can involve the cities further and talk to them further. Besides this focus group, one of the points, for example, is when the system statements will go out to communities, as well as throughout the entire comprehensive planning process. We have several examples in the 2040 process where the community designations did change. When we receive information that are, you know, just show that the community designation doesn't quite match the needs of the community, that has been done in the past, but we are hoping that in this round we will be doing that even more and find those points that we can, you know, engage the community more of what you just saw on that map, so that none of those are surprises. One other thing that I will note is that throughout this analysis, we aren't necessarily thinking that the community designations for 2050 Regional Development Guide will be drastically different. So it's not going to be a complete revamp of everything. We are just trying to refine and listen and see how we can make it better. And honestly, they may end up very similar to the last round.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, just one follow-up.
Please.
And I guess just a pitch for LUAC, because that's where a lot of the work's going to be done. And I don't know if you guys have an opening or not, but it's a really great body to have people from all of our communities sit on that and be part of the process, because they're pretty instrumental in that. So thank you for your work on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any others? Going once? Well, thank you, Rand.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll continue to stay interested in your work.
And thanks.
So at this point, are there any reports from council members?